go off and explore new things, new adventures. So you are going to be flying. You are flying. So I want to tell you about a couple of people I met during my first few years of teaching. I actually coached cheer, and it was an interesting experience, and I learned a lot over the years. And I think when I started, because I was not a cheerleader in high school, when I started coaching, I had that stereotypical expectation that the person at the top of the pyramid was the smallest person and the lightest person. And so I had a young woman on my squad one year whose name was Abby, and she was just that. She was tiny, she was light, she was bubbly, she was stereotypical picture of a cheerleader. And when you put her up in a half, she did okay. But when you put her up in anything higher, like a full or anything like that, and then tried to cradle her, she tended to do this in the air, coming down. She was all elbows and knees, and like she would literally hit her bases, and it was very dangerous. Now, I had another student, another cheerleader, her name was Andrea. And Andrea was not your typical flyer. She was not your typical, not at all. And she came to me and she said, "Miss White, I want to try flying." And I was like, "Sweetie, you're 5'9". You're tall. How do you?" She said, "I think I can do it." And I said, "Okay, we'll give it a shot. We'll see what happens." And so that year, interestingly enough, she was one of about 4 or 5 girls who was 5'9" to 5'11". They were tall group. And so that group became a center, and she became their flyer. And she was incredible. She was absolutely incredible. And she, no problem. She could put her in a lid. She could do the whole foot behind her head thing. She was wonderful. So what's the difference between Abby, who you would expect would be a good flyer because she fits, she's tiny and everything, and Andrea, who was not so stereotypically a cheerleader? Well, Andrea had 2 key components that Abby did not. Okay? Andrea had core strength. She could hold herself up when she was over people's heads. All right? She was strong when they cradled her. She could catch herself. She had strong stomach muscles. And the other thing that she had was an awareness of her body when she was standing on people's hands, when she was falling out of the air. She knew where she was. She knew where her bases were below her. And that's what made her an amazing flyer. So you all are about to fly the nest. Abby is an amazing flyer. What does that have to do with faith? Here's my analogy. Core strength. Core strength. That strength within you. That is your faith. All right? And that is a very important thing to have. It does not matter where you go to church, who you follow, what you believe. Having that faith, that is your inner core. That is your strength. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Thank you for using words. Those students in my class know how much I like words. So, your core, that is your strength. And you need to develop your core. All right? And you're working on that, and hopefully your time, growing up and your time at Mesa helps you develop that core strength, that sense of identity, that knowing who you are. All righty? Now, when I was in high school, 100 years ago, I had a difficult time. Between my freshman and sophomore year in high school, that summer my father passed away. And I can honestly tell you that I pretty much don't remember my sophomore year of high school. I must have completed it because I graduated, but it was one of those things that sort of became a blank. And it wasn't until I was older and I was looking back and reflecting on that time that I realized that while I might not have remembered much, and while my family was struggling to re-identify ourselves as a family of 5 instead of a family of 6, that core strength that my mother had, that my parents had instilled in each of their children, is what carried us through. If you're familiar with the story about the footprints on the beach, the man walking along and looking back on his life and says, God, why did you leave me when every time there's only one set of footprints is when the worst things were going on in my life? Why did you leave me? And God tells the man, I didn't leave you. That's when I carried you. And that's what I feel happened, especially for me and within my family, that my sophomore year, that we were carried as a family, and that core of faith within us is what allowed that to happen. Now, having faith doesn't solve problems, remove complications. It's not a magic wand, all right? What it does, as I said, is it gives you strength. Now, the other key component, as I said earlier, you've got that core strength, and then one of the things that made Andrea such a good flyer was her body awareness. And I'd like to equate that really to your body awareness, being aware of who you surround yourself with. Who are you? Part of that question is answered with your core, with your faith. All right? But more of that is then saying, who or what is my faith calling me to be? And how am I going to live that out? How am I going to be that person? Okay? For me, part of my faith community are those dinglings sitting over there. Okay? The people in the bell choir that I see and bring with and see every Sunday in church. They are part of my faith community. But also part of that is surrounding myself with friends who have similar beliefs and who care about each other and care about the world and care about our society. It's also our body awareness, our awareness is how are we going to serve others? How are we going to take that core of faith and use it in service? And then I think, lastly, and yet most importantly, how is that core of faith going to guide our choices? Because our choices are what reflect our character, they reflect who we are, and we want to make sure that we are making choices that demonstrate the best of our core. So, back to the cheesy analogy, all right? You are all flyers, but you are flying away. You have done amazing things here at Mesa High, and you are going to go on and continue to do amazing things. Whether you go to university, whether you're planning to serve a mission, whether you're going to tech school, whether you're serving in the military. But what I want to leave you with tonight is that you need to stay true to your core. Be aware of your core. Be aware of your faith. Stay true to that. And then, as I always tell my students on Fridays, make good choices. Be aware of who you are. Be aware of who you are. And make your choices as you move out into the world and change the world, because I know you are going to. Thank you.